Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I haven't shared yet, right? Did I share? Then so I welcome everyone for reading Srila Prabhupada LILAMRITA. We're in chapter 6 entitled what is that, Jhansi?
Title?
Yeah. What is the top at the top? You can move that back. Anyone remember the full title of the subject?
League of Devotees.
Is it League of Devotees?
The chapter name. It is an unknown friend.
No, that is previous.
Starts with Jhansi.
What did you say?
Jhansi, the League of Devotees.
It starts with Jhansi.
That. Okay, so now back to screen. So yesterday we ended his time with Mr. Ram Mitra, who was a shop of selling pots, bowls, and lotus and everything. In Prabhupada, in between his speaking, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he's a good vision. His expectation is that he wants to make the whole town Krishna consciousness, and no one can, he's not an ordinary person. No one can understand his vision. So here we continue. Mr. Mitra saw that Abhay's ambition was no less than to make the whole city of Jhansi alive with Krishna consciousness. Abhay quoted Chaitanya Charitamrita, "One who has received the great fortune of taking birth in India should make his life perfect and then do good for others by spreading Krishna consciousness." And Abhay would add, "The whole world is waiting, Mr. Mitra, for our spiritual revolution." He said, "Whole world is waiting." Mr. Mitra would nod, his handsome Nehru-like face forming a smile, but he saw that Abhay wanted people to do more than merely listen to him. He wanted them to do something, right? Once Mr. Mitra offered Abhay a copy of his book, showing him the foreword by a famous man, and repeatedly mentioned that the great sadhu Vinoba Bhave, I heard his name, Vinoba Bhave actually, had liked the poems very much. When Mr. Mitra learned that Abhay was a regular milk drinker, he began offering Abhay fresh milk daily from his cow, a black cow, and a black cow, Mr. Mitra said, gave especially good milk. Abhay invited Mr. Mitra to accompany him on foot to nearby villages along with a kirtan party for preaching. But Mr. Mitra declined, being unable to get anyone to tend the shop for him. Okay. Another young Ayurvedic doctor was Dr. Siddhi, who immediately expressed interest in Abhay's enthusiastic plans for spreading Krishna consciousness. Dr. Siddhi says, "He came several times to my place. I've got a kirtan room on my roof, and he performed kirtan there as well as at the Gita Mandir. We were also going daily to the Theosophical Society. There was an atmosphere, a very pious, sacred and calm atmosphere when the kirtan and preaching and lectures were performed. He used to play harmonium. We accompanied him for meeting people and preaching his mission. The main thing was to perform kirtan and give a lecture on the Bhagavad Gita and the life of Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was his Lord, and I also loved him." So in summary, we are continuing with his meetings with Mr. Mitra and his enthusiasm, his vision. He offered cow from his own milk, but later Prabhupada invited for kirtan party, but Mr. Mitra could not go because he didn't have anyone to cover, right? Anyone to tend the shop for him. He didn't have anyone cover his shop, so he could not attend. And also it mentions about Dr. Siddhi, who is another person who was very much enthusiastic with Abhay's plans. Later, Dr. Siddhi, I think this devotee is interviewed, right? He said that he came several times to my place. and I got a kirtan room on my roof. Basically saying Prabhupada that time, he had a little kirtan with his harmonium and had a talk on Bhagavad Gita and the life of Krishna. And he knows that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord. And I also loved him. That is, he's sharing Dr. Siddhi's sharing. Gaurav?
Radhe Lal Malik, secretary of the Gita Mandir and Sadhana Mandir, began meeting often with Abhay. Radhe Lal Malik. I was very much influenced by him. I used to spend 3 or 4 hours every morning in his association. He had many big scriptures. He was mainly concerned about the books about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was also writing at that time. The president of the Gita Mandir and I both volunteered to cook for him. It was during a morning walk with Radhilal Malik that Abhay first spotted the Bharati Bhavan, a picturesque temple complex across from the large Antiya pond. The neighborhood known as Antiya Tal was quiet and sparsely populated, but it was near Sipri Road, the main thoroughfare between downtown Jhansi and Sipri Bazaar. Abhay inquired from Mr. Malik about the temple, and together they turned from the main road and walked down a sloping footpath that led through the main gates of the compound. There they found several secluded acres, nestled within a grove of neem and mango trees. The main structure was the Radha Memorial. It was small like a chapel, but its proportions were stout and bold. Sitting on an octagonal stone base, it rose on 8 ornate pillars of red and white chipped marble, to a stone dome on top. 2 elephants bearing the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, on their upraised trunks decorated the entrance. Concrete bunting and striped patterns of red, green, and blue added to the decorative yet massive effect. The entrance is marked with the words Radha Smarak, carved in Hindi script, and above it the English translation, Radha Memorial. So in summary, it talked about how Radhe Lal Malik was talking about how Abhay was always interested in his scriptures and mainly about the books about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And once when he went on a walk with Abhay noticed the Bharati Bhavan and how it was such a big temple and a very nice temple which was in the neighborhood, and it was good. He liked it a lot, and the name of the temple was Radha Memorial.
Done?
It's the descriptions of the temple.
Yeah, but one thing I wanted to mention here is that it was during a morning walk with Radhalal Malik that Abhay first spotted the Bharati Bhavan. So this is the very important. Prabhupada was trying to establish here Bharati Bhavan. Here a long history into it. So he's giving the description of the Bharati Bhavan, how it looked like, as a pond and trees, and the description of the place, compound. Right.
When Abhay saw the Sanskrit inscription across the side of the stone temple, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he turned to Radhalal Malik and said strongly, "The Lord has built this building for my use." From that moment, Abhay was determined to having the building. Mr. Malik explained that the temple had been built in 1939 as a memorial to the wealthy Vaishnava landowner Radha Bhai, but at the present was not in use. Dr. Prabhakar Misra, whom Abhay had already met on several occasions, was occupying some of the rooms, but otherwise it was deserted. Mr. Malik and Abhay sought Dr. Misra in his quarter in the main building, and when Dr. Misra saw Abhay's enthusiasm, he invited Abhay to stay there with him. Dr. Misra confirmed that except for his Sunday morning Gita class, the facility was sitting idle, and he welcomed Abhay to carry on his writing and preaching there.
So here it's a coincidence the Prabhupada find. Generally you find in many places Hare Krishna Mahamantra is scripted actually. You'll find now also. But people have no interest, they have lost because they have not come across the devotees. But anyway, interestingly, Prabhupada finds this mantra there, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram Rama. It looks like half of it. So he gets inspired for this, convinced that it is meant for me. And Prabhakar Mishra and they all looks like very favorable for him to use this facility. Actually, in India, a lot of places are empty. You can see, just like in Western countries, a lot of churches are available. Unfortunately, it's not used. Same way, of course, many temples are busy, but there are many temples who are now people have given up no much interest. At least I have. South India still have little interest in people, but as we go other parts, you see there's less interest. Okay, AJ, you please start.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Abai liked the idea. Immediately, he began thinking of uses for the buildings, surveying the land with increasing interest. A second larger building, also with stone pillars and facades, held a hall and 5 rooms. Abai made a mental plan for each room. In this room, kirtans and lectures with large gatherings. In this room, the deity of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In these rooms, resident brahmacharis and sannyasis, guests here, an office there, the printing press here. There was even land for grazing a cow. It was a self-contained unit. Hundreds of people could come here for kirtan, prasadam, and discourses. Preachers could go out from here distributing Back to Godhead magazines. Some could even go abroad with Lord Chaitanya's message. As Abai and his companions walked through the compound, appreciating it as a suitable place to start an ashram, his companions encouraged him, saying they were sure that Mr. Reva Sankar Bayal, the agent who handled all the properties of Radha Bai's descendants, would have no objection to Abai living there. Why couldn't the landlord give him the buildings? Abai asked. They were simply going to waste. If it were actually to be a memorial to Radha, it should be used in Krishna's service, since Krishna is Radha's worshipable Lord. So just, he was excited pretty much. He saw this, saw this property and immediately had a vision for it and saw, what he could do, how everything that he needed to start an ashram was right there. And, he was trying to figure out, how they can get it, like, and even justified in his head, hey, the landlord should give it to us. Because this building should be used for Krishna because that's who Radha worshipped.
Thank you. This is, I would like to share that. If you see, he immediately began thinking of uses of the building. So this is the nature of the devotee. They can see immediately plan, okay, what can be utilized. Prabhupada already has in a subtle form how it should look like. Thus he could immediately plan. This is the Krishna conscious devotee because they always see things in perspective of service to Krishna. It looks like a very simple thought, but please try to understand this mode. What we take home. When this is the pure devotee's heart, he sees something, immediately thinks, oh, how I can engage in Krishna service. That is a very great point. Second, you can start.
Abhay was determined and his friends agreed to help him. First, they met with Ram Mitra, who said that he was such a close friend of Mr. Bayal's that Mr. Bayal would probably give the place simply at his request. Dr. Shastri said that he also wanted to go to impress upon Mr. Bayal how much the people of Jhansi wanted Abhay to have this place. When Reva Shankar Bayal met with his friend Ram Mitra, also present were Abhay, Dr. Shastri, Radhelal Mullik, Prabhakar Mishra, and Suryamukhi Sharma, a young, educated Jhansi woman. They presented the case from several angles, and Mr. Bayal listened. He agreed that he wasn't using the place at present, and this seemed to be a good cause. He agreed to let Abhay use the facilities for his league of devotees for as long as he liked. And at Abhay's request, he agreed to become a member of the league. They shook hands. On behalf of the estate, Mr. Bayal presented the Bharati Bhavan properties in charity to Abhay Charan De and the League of Devotees.
Wow, that's a big thing. Okay, then you will see.
So here, basically, Abhay went with a group of people to Mr. Bayal, who was the who was the property keeper. Basically, he looked at all the properties of Radha Bai. They met with a group of friends like Ram Mitra, who was Mr. Bayal's friend, and also Dr. Shastri, Radhelal Malik, Prabhakar Mishra, and Suryamukhi Sharma. They presented their case and convinced Mr. Bayal that this place was not being used, and if he could give it to Abhay for his League of Devotees, it would go a long way. And he agreed to the request, and Mr. Bayal gave the complete Bharati Bhavan properties in charity to Abhay Charande.
I wish, yeah, that's good.
During December and January, Abhay prepared a League of Devotees charter. He wanted to begin vigorous, extensive preaching, following the example of his spiritual master. Once he began to set his goals to paper, the project immediately began to expand beyond Jhansi, beyond India. Of course, the League of Devotees was not for the young, was for the young people of Jhansi. They were already expressing great interest, but Abhay's charter described more than merely evening classes and kirtana. It was a broad scheme including a description of the four orders of society: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaisya, and Sudra, and detailing plans to accommodate a worldwide religious movement. The charter set forth a probationary period for prospective members. It described spiritual initiation. It arranged for economic reciprocation between individual members and the League. It arranged to provide lodgings for preachers, and it defines prohibited activities, illegitimate connection with women, intoxicating habit, diets other than regulated strictly on vegetable kingdom, gambling, and unnecessary sport or recreation enterprises. So yeah, so it describes that like Abhay prepared a league, prepared a plan, and he wanted to be like some examples of his spiritual master. And then one time he like set his goals to paper, and then he began to expand beyond Jhansi and beyond India. And then he knew the like it was for the young people of Jhansi, and but his character described like merely his charter described more than merely evening classes in kirtan, and like it was like a broad scheme and a description for the four orders of society: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaisya, and Sudra. And then it described spiritual initiation, like, and it arranged for economic reciprocation. And
Thank you.
okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, and it defined
Prohibited activities.
activities. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Good job. You can give a separate class on this, okay?
Okay.
Just Namataji can go.
To establish his league with the registrar in Lucknow, Abhay required a memorandum of association signed by the league members. In this document, which was to list the objectives of the society, Abhay expressed his vision for the continuation of his spiritual master's mission. Like his god brothers who had created new mathas after the dissolution of the Gaudiya Math, Abhay was forming a new branch of the Gaudiya Sampradaya to be called the League of Devotees. He was not simply claiming proprietorship of a few buildings. He was establishing a Krishna conscious society that would expand into a world movement. His intentions were clearly not insular, but were directed towards creating centers for spiritual development all over the world. Abhay wrote, Lord Chaitanya revealed the transcendental process of approaching the absolute Godhead, and in his teachings, nothing appears to be absurd from the point of human reasoning, and nothing against any religion as accepted by the human and civilized world. In enumerating the League's goals, he included the opening of centers in all parts of the world, thus establishing the League as an international organization for spiritual developments through education, culture, as also by recruiting members from all nations, creeds, and castes. The League would publish literature in many languages and print a monthly magazine, Back to Godhead. Here to establish the League with the register, Abhay required a memorandum of association. In that, he need to list the objectives of the society. So he expressed he wanted to he wrote that he wanted to continue his spiritual master's mission. Actually, his god brothers established so many matas after the dissolution of the Gaudiya Math. Here, Abhay also starting a new branch of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, but he was not simply claiming the proprietorship of buildings. He was trying to establish the real Krishna conscious society. I don't know, probably then.
Yeah, very nice. So basically, he has a worldwide, he has a vision. Anytime he never looks like from beginning, he never thought a small scale. He always said that it's a worldwide. That's why it says International Organization for Spiritual Development through Education Culture, by recruiting members from all nations and creeds and castes. So, and that's the broader vision he always had. Abhay didn't know that he didn't know what Krishna has planned, but he has been planning from there actually. Yes. Prasant, you're there? Yeah, please.
Abhay obtained the necessary signatures for his memorandum of association. He then took the train to Lucknow and on February 4 paid the deposit of 50 rupees and filed his application. He returned to Jhansi. In his room in the Dada Memorial, Abhay would rise daily at 4 a.m. and arouse his young neighbor Prabhakar Mishra. From 4 to 5, Abhay would write. At 5, he would walk in the Antyathal area. At 5:30, bath and then chant Hare Krishna on his beads until 7. When he would hold a class on the Chaitanya Charitamrita or Srimad Bhagavatam, although Prabhakar Mishra was usually the only listener, at 8 he would return to his literary work, typing until after 10. When he would begin to prepare a meal, in the afternoon, he would often go around Jhansi meeting people and preaching, looking for anyone willing to take part in the League of Devotees. In the early evening, he would write until 7, when he would prepare for the Kirtana and lecture. He would hold at one of various places in the city, depending on where he was invited.
You can read one more.
Sure.
Okay.
Although Abhay had no money for continuing Back to Godhead, a well-established part of his preaching was to write essays. Regardless of whether they were to be immediately published or not, he wrote a long essay, some 24,000 words, entitled Message to Godhead. He also wrote
Message of God.
Message of Godhead. He also wrote a series of chapters propounding the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, especially as they apply to world problems and signs of devotion. A summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Abhay obtained signatures for the Memorandum of Association, and he also registered his organization in Lucknow and came back to Jhansi. And this describes the timetable of
His
what
schedule, his daily schedule those days.
Yeah, his schedule in Jhansi. He would wake up at 4 a.m. He would also wake up his neighbor Prabhakar Mishra, and from 4 to 5 he would write at 5:30, and then he would take a walk for half an hour, and then at 5:30 he would bathe and chant Hare Krishna until 7 o'clock. Then he will hold a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita or Srimad Bhagavatam, even though Prabhakar Mishra was the only listener. And at 8, he would return to his literary work up to 10. Then he would prepare his meal, and in the afternoon, he will be going around Jhansi, looking for devotees, preaching, and propagating the message so that more people would be interested to come and join the League of Devotees. And then evening is Kirtan and lecture. So his complete day is going in the devotional service of Krishna. And although Abhay had no money, he wanted to continue Back to Godhead magazine. And he was also writing a lot. He was writing on the several essays, and also which was titled Message of Godhead. And also he was writing with a series of chapters on Bhagavad Gita, and also a summary on Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Isn't it such an inspiring? Hope you all are relishing this, his enthusiasm to spread one man's preparation. Remember this, one man's desperate to some or other. That's why it's all these things we should carry in our memory. Okay. Swati Mataji, please read.
On May 16, 1953, Abhay held a grand opening ceremony for the League of Devotees with continuous reading, kirtan, and prasadam distribution from early morning until night. The building was decorated with the leaves, flowers, and many earthen water pots. In the evening, when attendance was the greatest, Abhay lectured from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita on Rajagun Yoga. Prabhakar Mishra conducted a fire sacrifice and several Brahmins chanted mantra from Brahma Samiti. Guest received 16-page prospectus continuing the Abhay essay on needs for the league, and experts from the character explained its goals.
Charter
Explaining its goals. It was signed Om Tat Sat. Abhay Charanaravindo Bhakti Vedanta, founder and secretary. The opening was a pleasant, auspicious event for the people of Jhansi, and hundreds gathered in the evening of Abhay lecture. Dr. Sharma, a charter member of League and editor of Jhansi Daily's newspaper, had already published the event and was planning a write-up for the following days. The Gaudiya Patrika also reported on the opening. The editor of the local Theosophical Society, Sri
Theosophical Society.
Theosophical Society, Sri Lakshminarayana Rajpali was also present. Although he held different philosophical opinions from Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, he is very sympathetic with this movement. In the assembly, there were many people worth mentioning. The inauguration and establishing of deities will be done soon. The assembly will require Rajpati Sri K.M. Munshi to perform the inauguration ceremony. Their centers have been registered by the Society's Registration Act. Sri Bharati Bhavan is the name of the league's building, in which they have lectured the hall and a temple that resembles a place. The assembly has activities at the center, and there are also facilities for members to live there.
Hmm.
Maybe
You want me?
that-
Okay. So basically, it's such a wonderful planning, as if it's going very inspiringly for Prabhupada. 1953 May 16 inauguration ceremony of League of Devotees was held with Kirtan Prasadam and so many guests present with the fire sacrifice, everything. The deity installation was not part of it, but the facility inauguration was very much. I'm so happy to hear all this till now. And so many big influential people also joined. It was reported in the publicized in few things, especially the Gaudiya Patrika also reported this. So the assembly will request Rajapati Sri K.S. Munshi to perform the okay. So the center has been registered by the Society's Registration Act. Sri Bharati Bhavan is the name of the league building, in which they have a lecture hall and a temple that resembles a palace. The assembly has many activities at the center, and there are also facilities for members to live there. Yeah, very nice. So this the all incidents taken place over there, and the description of the place. Vijayanand Prabhu.
Abhay felt confident that the Bharati Bhavan would now be established and recognized as the home of the League of Devotees. He was happy to see that the opening day was not merely his private affair, but an event celebrated by the most important citizens of Jhansi. His past life was seeming further and further behind him each day. But one day, after he had been in Jhansi about 6 months, a telegram arrived, bringing a startling reminder of his past connections. His business in Allahabad had been burglarized. His servants had stolen all his money and medicine and anything else of value. It had been a loss of 7,000 rupees. Abhay read the news, laughed, and uttered the Bhagavatam verse. Yashaham anugrahanami harishye taddanam sanai tatodanam tyajanti asya swajana dukkha dukkitam. Prabhakar Mishra advised Abhay to go back to Allahabad to recover what he could. No, Abhay said, this is good for me. I was sad, but now for one great attachment has come to an end. And my life is fully surrendered and dedicated to Sri Sri Radha Madhava. Abhay's son, Brindaban, soon arrived in Jhansi, requesting Abhay to come to Calcutta to revive the business. Abhay Charan De and Sons. As they sat together in Abhay's room at the Radha Memorial, Abhay explained that he could not go back. He requested Brindaban to stay and assist him by doing typewriting, but Brindaban returned to Calcutta. So, these passages explains how Abhay was happy on that event he had organized. It was not his private event. Lot of public people participated in it, and it was lot of locals of Jhansi participated actively. And also there was another news for him one day. He received a telegram saying that his business in Allahabad has been burglarized. His servants had stolen money and medicine and everything. So he had a big loss of like 7,000 rupees. But still, Abhay was not worried. He was very happy, and he was on hearing the news, he laughed, and he uttered this Bhagavatam verse. And when Dr. Mishra advised him to go back and look into the business, Abhay was reluctant to go back. And even his son Brindaban came from Calcutta, and he also requested Abhay to come back to revive his business. But Abhay rejected his request, and he asked Brindaban to help in his typewriting. but Brindaban did not like it, and he left back to Calcutta.
Yeah, nice. Let me see if I miss anyone to read. I think everyone got an opportunity, right? Okay. From his first meeting with Prabhakar, Abhay had urged the younger, educated man to take part in the League of Devotees as a full-time assistant. Although as lecturer and medical officer, Prabhakar had many duties at the university. He helped as much as he felt he could. He soon became Abhay's most active assistant. Abhay appointed him as secretary to the league and, after several months, initiated him. Thus, Abhay became Prabhakar's first spiritual master, and Prabhakar became Abhay's first disciple. As a preacher, Abhay was duty-bound to accept disciples, giving them the Hare Krishna mantra and the Parampara instructions as he had received from his spiritual master. Prabhakar, however, not being a completely surrendered disciple, remained independent, more like an assistant than a disciple. As university principal, Sanskrit scholar and medical doctor, he continued to pursue his own interest also. Srila Prabhupada, that League of Devotees, I was alone. There was some students, but they were not so active. I was doing everything. I wanted to organize with Prabhakar Mishra and others, but they were not interested to devote their whole time. If you ask them to do full-time work, that he would not do, but he was initiated. They were all learned scholars in Sanskrit, medical men. Thus, when the Gaudiya Patrika had reported the opening day ceremonies, it had referred to Prabhakar in honorable terms as Abhay's partner in the League of Devotees, although he was actually Srila Bhakti Vedanta's initiated disciple. So, and now we see here, because he was young, no? Even a spiritual master, his expectation that disciple will do, disciple will surrender. When disciples don't have any other examples, they won't know. So Prabhupada had all these plans for him to give full time, but he did as much he could do. As he's young, didn't have the commitment like that. So he continued to pursue in a different way whatever he wanted to do. That's what Prabhupada is saying. In one sense, I was kind of alone. They were there, no one is helping. Prabhupada is expecting some life, somebody could dedicate, just like Gaudiya Math. Without manpower, you cannot run it. But the time has changed. So Prabhupada is saying, even though they are all learned scholars in Sanskrit, but they had no desire to assist in full time like that. So he needed, Gaurav.
Bhaktivedanta Prabhu summoned the service of the Honorable Acharya Srimad Prabhakar Mishra Sastri, Kavya, poetry, Vyakarna, grammar, Vedanta, philosophy, Tirtha, BIS MSA, to perform the sacrifice. He is the principal of a college in which the Vedas and Vedangas are taught and degrees are given. He is also the assistant manager of the League of Devotees. According to time and circumstances, Abhay was engaging this young man in devotional service. Abhay was interested not in collecting disciples, but in establishing the League of Devotees, and for that he needed assistance. Prabhakar Mishra. When I first met Swamiji, he said to me, "You are a Brahmin and a Prabhakar. You are eating in a restaurant. You come with me. I'll feed you myself, and I shall cook." So we would prepare prasadam and offer it to the Lord. We would take Bhagavad prasadam together. In this way, by his mercy, I got the chance to take prasadam. He also said to me, "You become Keshahan, shaven." So I went with the shaven head to the college where I taught, and everyone laughed at me. When I told Swamiji the situation, he said, "Since you're a medical officer, you can grow out your hair." When I took Diksha, Swamiji gave me my name, Acharya Prabhakar. My original name was Prabhakar Mishra, so he said, "You don't write the Mishra, you are Acharya Prabhakar." He gave me the name and offered me a tulsi mala and put tilak on my forehead and tied a kanti mala around my neck. He had registered the foundation of the League of Devotees, and he appointed me as its secretary for preaching throughout the world. We used to go to villages for Sankirtan and for Bhagavad Gita Katha continuously. So Abhay explains the position that Prabhakar was given and um, how he was interested in he was interested for assistance because he needed them to help him grow the League of Devotees, but he didn't want to collect disciples. And also how Prabhakar Mishra's opinion and how he had met Swami Abhay, and he explained saying that when he first met him, Prabhakar Mishra was eating at a restaurant, but Abhay said, "Come, I'll feed you at home," and that was the first time he had ever had prasadam. And he also said how Abhay asked him to shave his head, but when he did at his college, everyone started laughing at him. So Abhay said there was no need for him to do that. And he also talked about how his initiating name was Acharya Prabhakar and how he was registered as appointed as the secretary for the League of Devotees.
Yeah.
Abhay started a Sankirtan movement in Jhansi. At first, accompanied only by Acharya Prabhakar, he used to walk about the neighborhood of Nyabasti, chanting Hare Krishna. As he continued this practice, his group gradually increased until 50 people were gathering regularly to go out on parikrama, chant together, and visit temples. Afterward, they would gather at the Radha Memorial for an evening lecture. When Abhay would go to preach in the nearby villages, he would usually be accompanied by whatever league member were free. Once he went with Acharya Prabhakar on Pada Yatra, traveling on foot and preaching to Chirgaon, some 20 miles from Jhansi. In Chirgaon, there lived a nationally known poet, Maithili Saran Gupta, who received Abhay and his disciple at his home for dinner. Abhay told his host that since he was an accomplished poet, he should write something glorifying Krishna, and the poet agreed. After preaching in Chirgaon, Abhay and Prabhakar returned to Jhansi, spending one day in each of 5 villages along the way. At night, the villagers would gather and Abhay would lead Kirtana. He explained to Prabhakar that although most of these simple farmers were not scholars in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, they could achieve the highest spiritual benefits simply by Kirtan. Abhay was well received by the villagers who begged him to return soon, but to give them notice next time so that they would prepare a
Okay.
proper reception.
Nice. So here it's going, even the small team, 2 people is going as he start the Sankirtan outside, sometimes accompanied by you walk about the neighborhood and different places and some village also, it says neighboring villages. He was received well, they agreed. Looks like they are going to, offer proper service, proper reception next time. In India, that's a natural tendency, especially the more you go to rural places, there were appreciation. The more you go to urban society kills all emotions, all cultures, everything goes bad. It's nothing new. Okay, AJ, please.
While preaching locally, Abhay was simultaneously working to give an international scope to his League of Devotees. He wrote to government agencies asking them to help him expand his genuine educational project, and he also tried to recruit preachers from amongst his friends. He wrote to his old college classmate Rupan Mitra in Calcutta, inviting him to join in worldwide missionary activities. My mission desires to train up to 40 trainees, and I have asked help from the government for this useful educational purpose. I want that you may be one of the trainees in this regard, and you can ask Kartik Dada to join us in this spirit. You will know from the paper sent to you how we live and what we do, and thus you can make up your mind whether it is possible for you to join us. The first thing is that we want to train up some retired men in the Vanaprastha life and some young men in the Brahmacharya life. I have no inclination for the sannyas life, which is rather a difficult job for the fallen people of this age. The so-called sannyasis in red garments have spoiled the good name of such order of life. Abai also asked Rupin, kindly let me know the charges of this advertisement in the English and vernacular papers of Calcutta. So again, he's reaching out, he's just trying to get more and more and bring more people into the fold to help, with his missionary activities. And, wrote to his old college buddy Rupin and said, like, here's what we do, here's the goal, and I want you to be a part of this. But it sounds like he's kind of letting him know it's like this isn't an easy life. So if you can, here's what we're all about, and if you think you can do this, we'd love to have you aboard. And it also looks like he's asking for Rupin to publish this somewhere as well, in that last line there, so he can recruit more folks that way as well. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I guess the big line is this one is about the sannyas order, saying he's just no desire to even attempt that. It's just too hard in Kali Yuga, and current sannyasis are all kind of charlatans, I guess it sounds like.
Interesting. He have no inflation for the sannyas life, but he gives so many sannyasis because of the emergency, actually. The so-called sannyasis in red garments has spoiled the good name of such order of life. Yeah, that's right. And okay, second to
Educational. Wanted candidates from any nationality to qualify themselves as real Brahmins for preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for all practical purposes throughout the whole world. Deserving candidates will be provided with free boarding and lodging. Apply A.C. Bhaktivedanta, founder and secretary of the League of Devotees, Bharati Bhavan, Post Office, Jhansi, UP. Abhay wanted a deed stating that the Bharati Bhavan belonged to the League of Devotees. So far, he had only a promise. Thinking of Jhansi as a permanent headquarters, he wanted a written commitment. When he approached Reva Shankar Bayal for a deed of gift, Mr. Bayal gave Abhay a form requesting him to pay 500 rupees to register the buildings. But since Abhay had just suffered a loss of 7,000 rupees in Allahabad and had recently spent 3,000 rupees in his preaching, much of it going towards the opening day festival, he found himself unable to raise even 500 rupees. Acharya Prabhakar, despite his academic position, had very little money and was being subsidized by his parents with 3 rupees a day. Most of Abhay's congregation, especially the students, were in a similar position. Mr. Bayal's request for 500 rupees didn't seem urgent, nor did he say what would happen if Abhay couldn't pay. But he soon made another request. Mr. Abhay Charan De should buy the Bharati Bhavan for 5,000 rupees. It was disconcerting. The generous gift had turned into a purchase offer. The people in town were already referring to the property as Abhay Bhaktivedanta's ashramam, and the League of Devotees was printed in large letters across the wall of the compound. When pressed by Abhay's friends, Mr. Bayal assured them that Abhay could go on living there, but ultimately he would have to buy. Mr. Bayal said he would give the League of Devotees first consideration and a good price. So here we read about the advertisement Abhay wanted to publish in English newspapers, where he is asking for people to come forward to preach the teachings of Bhagavad Gita all over the world. And then Abhay wanted a deed for Bharati Bhavan to the League of Devotees. So he went, what he has until now was just a promise. So he went to Mr. Bayal to ask him for the deed. Mr. Bayal asked him to pay 500 rupees to register the buildings. Abhay had recently suffered a loss of 10,000 rupees, 3,000 in Allahabad, and only loss of 7,000 in Allahabad, and remaining 3,000 he had invested in his preaching. So he was not able to raise 500 rupees. And the members of the league were also mainly students. They were also not able to help in getting that 500 rupees. but later on, the request changed from Mr. Bayal that now he should buy Bharti Bhavan for 5,000 rupees. So it was it was disconcerting. Abhay was not happy because everyone in Jhansi referred to Bharti Bhavan as Bhakti Vedanta's ashram, and the League of Devotees was also imprinted at the entrance. So Mr. Bayal said he would give preference to League of Devotees, but he was bent to sell it for a good price.
See how this happens?
Yeah.
Everything, Yes, Samarth Prabhu, please.
Okay. Abai worried, not knowing what the landlord would do next. If the league could purchase the property, that would be best. But he had been unable to raise even 500 rupees. 5,000 seemed impossible. Abai found no strong financial backing from his congregation. His league did not include even a single full-time worker. He did know of one way to raise money. His pharmaceutical business. He still has a small operation being run by his son in Calcutta. Abai formerly been earning 3,000 rupees a month. He considered approaching godbrothers for help, but these prospects for earning the money himself seemed more likely. For 30 years, he had earned money by his pharmaceutical business, and he could do it again for the most worth cause. So, like, it describes that Abai didn't know what the landlord would do, because he's worrying that then he and because seemed like it seemed that 5,000 rupees seemed impossible, and he found no financial backing for his congregation, and then he didn't know how to raise money too in his business, but he still had a small operation run by his son in Calcutta, and before he has been earning 3,000 rupees a month, and then for help he considered going to his godbrothers, but these prospects he thought he could. He thought earning money himself seemed more likely, and then it also says that for 30 years he earned money by business, and he thought he could do it again for better cause.
Okay, thank you. Mataji, go ahead.
When he arrived in Calcutta in the spring of 1954, he was without money. He chose to live with his godbrothers at the Gaudiya Sangha in Chetla, the same neighborhood his family lived in. Since he had no money, the head of the ashrama bore his expenses. Abhay gave daily discourses on Srimad Bhagavatam, which the Gaudiya Sangha brahmacharis highly appreciated. Krishna Kumara Brahmachari, even after he left, his sweet, melodious voice would ring in my ears. He used to often express a desire to go abroad and preach. One of his sons was running a small business, Wimalton Laboratory, and thus supporting the family. Abhay knew that his wife would not be interested in his work in Jhansi. His son had been there, but had not been.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
His son had been there, but had not been impressed. The family would see his preaching in Jhansi as a threat to their home life. Abhay, however, was sustaining himself by his vision, which was now taking practical shape, of a world reformed by Krishna consciousness. He even thought of opening a branch of the League of Devotees in Calcutta. yeah. In 1954, he again thought of doing business to earn money uh, for buying the property in Jhansi. So he again went to Calcutta, but at the time he has no money. He stayed with his god brothers at the Gaudiya Sangha in Chetla. As he has no money, the head of the ashrama only bore all his expenses. He used to give lectures, discourses on Srimad Bhagavatam every day. The brahmacharis in that ashrama appreciated that very much. And one brahmachari, Krishna Kumara brahmachari, he said, even after he left, Abhay left his sweet and melodious voice is still ringing in his ears. And Abhay used to tell him that his desire was to go abroad and preach. And one of his son was running a small business, a laboratory, and supporting the family. His wife, as usual, she is not interested in the work he is doing in Jhansi. So thought of opening. And again he wanted to open a branch of league in Calcutta.
Yeah, all this finding out, what are different things you can do. Okay, Prasanthi, you please read.
But inevitably, he was plunged again into family responsibilities. Some of his children were still unmarried. Rent and bills had to be paid. Even if he were to develop the Wimbledon laboratory, the family would demand whatever he earned. And even if he were to accede to their demands, live at home and give up preaching, the greatest difficulty would still remain. They weren't serious about devotional service, nor could he change them. What was the use of conducting a business if they would not be devotees? He visited his family, and the same old scent occurred. Local friends came to visit, and Abhay began preaching, giving Bhagavad Gita classes, just as he had been doing in Jhansi. Meanwhile, his wife and the rest of the family would take tea in a separate room. Srila Prabhupada, I wanted as much as possible to get her to work with me in spreading Krishna consciousness, to get her help. But she was very determined. She wouldn't help me in spreading Krishna consciousness. So finally, after many years, I could understand she would not be any assistance to me. She was very attached to drinking tea. I was always telling her not to drink tea because I wanted to have a nice Vaishnava family. So although I was repeatedly telling her this time I finally said, you have to choose between me or tea. Either the tea goes or I go. In this way, I was even criticizing my own family. But before they were thinking I was the husband or father, they couldn't take my instruction seriously. So she replied, giving up tea drinking or giving up my husband? Well, I will have to give up my husband then. Of course, she thought I was joking.
Wow.
So he was back to Calcutta, and he was plunged again into family responsibilities because some of the children are unmarried and bills have to be paid, rent has to be paid. So he started working in Wimbledon laboratory. Um, he was thinking if I were to develop a Wimbledon laboratory, then the family would take all the money with various demands, and the preaching will not happen. So he was thinking about the family atmosphere, that his family is not supportive, and he was not interested in his wife taking the tea, and he often told her to avoid it multiple times. And it came to a point where he said, "Choose me or the tea." And I think she was jokingly saying, "I have to give up my husband."
No, I don't think he's joking. Maybe
thought he was
he
joking.
thought he would be joking. Maybe he's not joking, little seriously, but maybe he will not be very serious. But he didn't understand the gravity what Prabhupada was saying this. It's a big thing actually. Swati Mataji, please.
One day, Radharani made a great mistake. There was a system of barter in which a customer would place on a scale an object of shopkeeper considered valuable, and the shopkeeper would then balance it with an equal weight of merchandise. So while Abhay was out, his wife took his worshipable Bhagavatam to the market and traded it for a tea biscuits. When Abhay came home and looked for the book, she told him what had happened. She hadn't taken the matter as very serious thing. She was out for a tea biscuits, but Abhay was shocked. At first he felt depressed, but then a wave of absolute resolution passed over him. His family life was finished. When he told them he was leaving, they didn't understand what he means. He had been leaving for 30 years. He was always coming and going. When he walked out of the door, they thought, there he goes again. He is leaving. I was the usual routine. It was the usual routine. Everyone could see, even the neighbors. Mr. D was doing again. He had been at home, now he was going. He would be back again. But Abhay knew he would never come back. Srila Prabhupada, before leaving my family, I wanted to get all my sons and daughter married, but some of them disagreed. But then the time is up. Never mind whether they are married or not. Let them see their own business. Suppose I die immediately, who will take care of my daughter? At that time, we say God will take care. Then why not now? God will take care. My Guru Maharaj used to say that renunciation of family life was civil suicide. If you commit suicide, that is criminal. But that renunciation of the family is voluntarily committing suicide. Now I am dead. Whatever you like, you do. Yeah, you can summarize, Prabhuji.
Yes, yeah. So this is the situation for AJ. I want to give a little summary. In India, they sell papers, newspapers and all this paper. They weigh after the newspaper is read, it has no value. It's like it goes in waste. So people sell, and when they sell, you get little money, very little money. Who cares for the newspaper? It goes for the recycle, some use. So Prabhupada was not home. His wife is selling Bhagavatam in that weight as a trash for little money, because you don't get little, you get, so that money can bring you some tea or something like that. It is a big setback or big disturbance for him. He couldn't take, and he thought this is the last now. I think Krishna has been instrumental in taking fine everything we had, and family had no interest. So he was leaving. Everybody's thinking, oh, he so many times he had left home. They were thinking, okay, he will come back again. But Prabhupada was sure, he knew that he won't coming back. So then the question comes, renunciation. What is the difference between renunciation? Renunciation is kind of civil, voluntarily taking the family life, retirement from the family life. It's okay. What somebody will take care. Krishna will take care. Vijayanand Prabhu.
Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Paritrajya. Give up all religion. So family is Graha Dharma. The religion of the family. But Krishna says, give that up. But that attachment is there. And if we say that feeling of attachment has to be given up gradually, then that we cannot do because the attachment is there. But if God will take care of them, if I die immediately, then why not now? His spiritual emotions were so turbulent that he wasn't thinking of going to Jhansi. He wanted to take a train to anywhere. Then he remembered some old God brother friends who were living in an ashrama in Jharkhand. only a short train ride south of Calcutta. So he borrowed 10 rupees from a friend and bought a ticket to Jhargram. It was a small matta. When Abe arrived, he was welcomed by Paramahamsa Maharaja, Damodara Maharaja, and others. Paramahamsa Maharaja had been present when Abe had first met Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and he remembered Abe as he had looked then, dressed in white khadi, looking like a Gandhian anarchist. Abe explained to him, I could not fulfill my family needs, so now let me preach the message of Lord Chaitanya. Abe told him how his business had failed, and now he had willingly left his family and was now destitute. So here, it's describing how like Abe is renouncing his family. So basically, it says with the quote from Krishna, Krishna says, give that up, the family and everything. And so, but if we say the feeling of it was also said like the feeling of attachment has to be given gradually, but that we cannot do. So so he was saying like if God will take care of them, then and if I die immediately, then why not now? So basically, after this saying this information, basically he is renouncing the family, and his spiritual emotions were like very high, and he did not like to go back to Jhansi. And so he was interested to go to anywhere, and he remembered that one of his god brother who is having god brother friends who are having an ashrama in Jhargram, which is like very short distance from Calcutta. So, and since he did not have any money, he borrowed like some money from his friend, and he started to Jhargram. So after reaching there, he found that it was a small matta, and he was welcomed by Paramahamsa Maharaja, Damodara Maharaja, and others. So these people, like Abe, know them already when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was present, and also they also remember Abe, whom looked like a Gandhian anarchist. And to them, Abe explained them like I could not fulfill my family needs, and I need to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya. And he was also explaining them how he failed in his business and how he willingly left his family, and now he's at the Mata actually, and was now destitute.
Thank you so much. It's 8:41. I think everybody got the second chance to read, right? So if it's okay, we will stop here unless anyone has a quick summary anyone wants to give or any questions. We read, today we read in brief that he started, he liked the place, he met to acquire the place of Vidya Bharati, Vidya Bhavan. Everybody agreed, Mr. Bayal agreed to give, and inauguration took place. Unfortunately, deed was not complete, and it started really preaching, planning for international preaching and everything. To his surprise, again another surprise, this man betrayed again. He's saying that give 500 rupees. First he asked for 500 rupees, he didn't give. Then 5,000 rupees for sell, purchase. That's a big setback for him. No choice, he tried to do some business. And he thought maybe he can do, he joins back family. Interestingly, wife frustrates him again by selling Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada leaves home and takes sannyas, not yet taking sannyas, but he won't permanently leave home now. Hasn't taken sannyas. He joined Jhargram, right? He came to Jhargram and welcomed by Paramahansa Maharaj and Damodar Maharaj. He wanted to preach about full time now, giving up everything, no going back. So that's what I gave. I spent 2 minutes to summarize. Anything else anyone wants to say?
Even though he tried to do in Jhansi, at that time he did not get any dedicated support. So like either financially or even like full time who dedicated to the movement.
Yeah.
Dr. Mishra, Prabhakar Mishra was his first disciple.
Yeah, Prabhakar Mishra is first disciple. That's nice. You will see. Hmm? Sorry? You're saying something?
No, Prabhuji.
I thought someone else is saying something. So very nice. If you all have watched the video which I shared before we started the Lilamrit, Prabhakar Mishra had his testimony over there. Shiksha lene ke liye, diksha lene ke liye, tumhe ye sab ka, you have to do for the initiation or this thing he was sharing. This thing. Whatever happened for good. But I want to thank you, everyone, for joining me to read this pastimes. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lilamrita ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.